In this presentation, we will point out the advantages and disadvantages of the principal qualitative research methods that can be used for developing interactive projects within the museum context. At the end of this presentation, you will be able to indicate how to select the most appropriate research methods according to its pros and cons. The terms and the keywords you will learn are qualitative research, research techniques, and bias. Interviews could be a very powerful tool. The advantages are that respondents' presence allows for clarification. There is a high response rate as people feel involved. You can gather in-depth information. You can tailor the line of discussion to the individual. It's easier to reach those special categories of people that you cannot reach with a survey. You can use probes and non-verbal cues to interact with people. The disadvantages are that the interviewer's presence and characteristics may affect how the interviewee responds. It provides only information filtered through the views of the interviewers, are expensive, requires strong interviewing skills, responses may be less honest and thoughtful, and respondents may be inhibited by the face-to-face approach. Focus groups are another powerful tool for user research. They generate relevant data and fresh ideas, allow for clarification and in-depth analysis. You can get information from a number of people, provide immediate sharing and synthesis, are more efficient than personal interviews. The disadvantages are that are moderately time-consuming, prone to subjective interpretation. Participants may be inhibited by the group, and input may be unbalanced because some group members dominate. Then we have activity observation. The advantages is that it can give first-hand information in a natural setting. The evaluator may remain anonymous or show his or her identity, and the evaluator may choose to actively participate or observe passively. In the first case, we have observant participation. It generates relevant data, and it's very useful for studying a small units such as a small group like a classroom, clerks inside the office. It's useful to study individuals who have difficulty verbalizing their ideas. The disadvantages are that activity observation requires skilled evaluator-observer. The evaluator has less control over the situation in a natural environment. And if the group is aware that they are being observed, the resulting behavior may be affected. And so observation cannot be generalized to entire population unless a plan for representatives is developed. If observer chooses to be involved in the activity, she may lose his or her objectivity, and is not realistic for use with large groups. Documents collected during the research could be a powerful resource. The advantages are that documents are in the language of the participants, and they are ready for analysis without the necessary transcription that is required with interviews or observation. But the disadvantages are that documents are sometimes difficult to locate and obtain. The information may not be available to the public. Information may be located in distant archives, requiring the researcher to travel, which time can be expensive. The documents may be incomplete, inauthentic, or inaccurate. In personal documents, such as diaries or letters, the handwriting may be hard to read. Research bias. In research, bias occurs when systematic error is introduced into sampling or testing by selecting or encouraging one outcome or answer over others. It means that bias is everything that could affect our research and invalidate it. But it's impossible to have a research that is totally unbiased. However, we can be aware of the most common biases and try to prevent them. So let's see how we can. The research bias could have origin in every phase of the research, but according to the methods explained, we can distinguish between two categories of biases. The respondent bias, that is related to the behavior of the participant, and the researcher bias, that is related to the behavior and the choices of the researcher or interviewer or observer. A kind of respondent bias is acquiescence bias. It occurs when a respondent has a tendency to be positive and agree with the ideas or concepts presented by the interviewer. It can happen because participants could have an acquiescent personality, or because they perceive the interviewer as an expert, or because the interview takes a long time of effort. We can avoid it creating question that doesn't imply that there is a right answer, asking for opinions and clarification, also engaging with personal experience, like what do you think about this? Another kind of respondent bias is social desirability bias. The respondents can answer to questions in a way that they think will lead to being accepted and liked, especially in focus group. And if the question is about personal or sensitive topic, the respondent could answer in a way that could present herself in the best possible light. But the interviewer can avoid it, creating confidence with the respondent, making her or him feel that is not judged. And question can be phrased to show that the participant could act even in a non-acceptable way. So researcher can use indirect questioning, asking about what a third party may think, for example. Then a kind of researcher bias is culture bias. It happens when we judge a culture using the values and the standards of another one. It's called ethnocentrism. To understand behavior, beliefs, attitude, etc. of someone, the researcher must know her or his culture and move toward a cultural relativism. It's possible to avoid it declaring researchers and responses cultural assumption. Moreover, the researcher should show an unconditional positive regard toward the other culture. Another researcher bias is question order bias. It occurs when a question influences the answer of the following questions. For example, if a respondent gives an opinion about a product and then is asked to rate another one, she will use the same scale or will change her answer to don't fall into contradiction. It's possible to avoid it going from general to specific and from positive to negative question. Another kind of researcher bias is leading question and wording bias. It can happen that the researcher should ask for clarification, and doing this can elaborate the respondent answer, putting words in their mouth and influencing the following answers or the interpretation of them. So it can be avoided by the researcher just rephrasing the question using the respondent's language, asking for explanation and avoiding to summarizing answers. There is another bias that could be both of the researcher or the respondent and is called the halo effect. As researchers and respondents could judge each other or people and things on the basis of some assumption, and this could lead to a misinterpretation of questions and answers. To avoid it, a researcher should be aware of this bias and take care about her aspect, the place of the interview, and other things that can lead to this kind of cognitive bias. The researcher can also rephrase questions to change point of view if she thinks that the respondent makes some wrong assumption. Moreover, she should be aware about her preconceptions about the respondent. So, in this presentation, we talk about pros and cons of qualitative research within the museum context. For each research method are presented the strengths and the weaknesses in relation to different contexts and outcomes. Moreover, the main research bias are presented. Now that you finish watching it, you should be able to selecting the most appropriate research method for a given scenario.